Hey, what's up, guys? So, we're going to discuss some hypotheses I have for missing 411 and what is happening to these people, and just some ideas of what I have for, what exactly has been going on across the world, and the most specifically known places that people know these happen, or, some people know that these happen, are national parks in the US. So, that's where we have a lot of documented clusters of where people have gone missing. So a cluster means they, typically have gone missing in the same area as another person who's gone missing. Tens, 20s, 30s of people, like, all go missing around the same area. And if they are found, which is super rare, then they are typically found super far, way farther than where they originally went missing. Like, I'll give an example. A young boy goes missing and they find him like 5 years later. They don't even find him, they find like a tooth and like a skull fragment, like 6 miles away and like 3,000 feet up a mountain. And a 2 or 3 year old could never climb that. Just couldn't. It's just impossible. And how did he get so far away when he was like right around the corner? Like, these people go missing when they're usually with other people, and it's almost as if some person just turns a corner, and when the other person turns that corner to catch up to them, they're gone. They're just gone. And they'll have hundreds of people come in to search for them. They'll have search dogs, and the search dogs can never get a scent, or they don't search. They just won't do it. And that's pretty strange for search dogs, because search dogs love their job typically. Like, they're very excited to go do what they do. Search dogs are very, very dedicated and good at what they do, and it's really strange. When you take a search dog out to go do that, they can't get a smell at all. And they also don't want to work. And this isn't just like a one-time thing. There's hundreds and hundreds of people who this has happened to. And another weird thing that happens that I'm going to tie into a hypothesis that I have later. And we'll talk about this, but after somebody goes missing, most of the time there's a huge change in the weather. It'll be a time of the year where I'm not talking like summer, but like, a couple months after where, there should be snow for the area, right? And all of a sudden they'll get blasted with 3 feet of snow in like a day. And that is a huge hindrance to finding somebody who goes missing. There's so much snow, or there's a crazy amount of storm, or the weather changes in a very dramatic way. Now, I don't believe this has anything to do with the person going missing, but it has something to do with how they went missing and the after effects of that. But I'm not going to get into that hypothesis first. The first hypothesis I have, I'm going to read a comment that I found on YouTube, and then I'm going to talk about what this could be and how I think this works. And please note that when it comes to this topic, the types of things that I'm going to talk about are fucking insane. They're not going to sound rational or possible. I'm going to sound like a kook. This type of thing, you just really can't come up with anything but some crazy explanations. And I'm going to talk about the crazy explanations that, have been running through my head. So bear with me. These are my ideas. And let's do this. So let me read that first comment. Here we go. And before I explain this story, I just need to add one more thing in. There is an unusual, what should I say, coincidence or seemingly there has something to do with granite rock, and water. It has something to do with what's happening. We don't know how, but it shows up in almost every case. Either the person was by water when they went missing, or they were by a granite boulder, or in a big granite field. So, let's read the story, but just keep that in mind that it's super weird how this is a factor. I don't know how, but here's my story. It is absolutely true. I used to live in Wawona, a small village situated within Yosemite National Park's south entrance. If you didn't know it existed, you might drive right on by its turnoff from the main road, which leads to Yosemite Valley. All the local kids/young folks used to go to a beautiful spot way upriver. It was a local granite-lined swimming hole. One could expect to meet up with a gang of locals there, all naked, sunbathing, and having fun. I never recall ever being there alone. There was a huge fallen tree that had once fallen across the top of the falls, about a 10 to 12 foot waterfall that poured into a very deep, crystal clear, granite-lined catch basin below. When I arrived that early afternoon, I was quite surprised to discover that I was the only person there. I walked over the log, over the falls to a granite spot on the other side. I stripped down and was enjoying the sun. However, I felt decidedly uncomfortable. Even though it was a perfectly clear day with no clouds in the sky, there was a darkness which I just couldn't put my finger on. It felt as though the air was thick enough to block out some of the sun's rays. I recall even searching the sky to see if I could detect any haze. There was none. After about an hour of uneasiness, and with no one else showing up, I decided to go back to my cabin. I got dressed, headed across the log to the other side, turned left, and headed up a small incline which led back to the river. Here's when it happened. As I was climbing the incline, I was looking at the ground, but as I neared the top, my gaze leveled out there, and there in front of me was something. I froze in my tracks. I was unable to move. All I was aware of was two black eyes with a penetrating gaze. And then I became aware of a voice in my head saying, "Deer, no, mountain lion, no, deer, mountain lion." I was frozen to the spot. We, whoever, whatever the other we was, never lost eye contact. I don't recall even blinking. Then all of a sudden I had an impression of an upward movement of the whatever. It was like levels of movement going up to my right. Then I suddenly came back to reality with an almost cartoon-like jerk. There was nothing around but me. I examined the area for footprints or disturbances on the path, but since it was a heavily wooded trail, leaves and pine needles made it difficult to detect anything out of the ordinary. All the way back, about 2 miles, I kept stopping to check behind me. I never saw anything but felt as though I was being followed. There's hardly a day that goes by that I don't try to figure out what I saw. All I ever got was those big, black, unblinking eyes, and then the words in my head. Curious thing about those words. Deer and mountain lion are about as opposite as one can figure. How could I confuse the two? It was almost as though the words were intended to short-circuit my brain. I certainly felt short-circuited. And where were all the young folks that should have been there on such a beautiful day? I was about 28 at the time. I am now 68. Yet I still rack my brain to see the rest of the entity. All I ever saw were the eyes. True event. Okay, so that story is pretty interesting. I'm not going to give my hypothesis on this yet, but I think it's very curious how the entity, or whatever it was he saw, was invisible, except for the eyes. So I guess just the one hypothesis I have is there's some sort of animal creature, whether from this dimension or this planet, I don't know, but there's something out there that we aren't aware of, at least the general population isn't aware of. Sorry if you hear fireworks in the background. It's July 5th, so you should understand. Yes, there's something hunting us that maybe even has the possibility of being invisible. So I think it's basically also pretty impossible for the park rangers at the national parks to have no idea of what's happening. So to show some evidence of that they might know a little bit more than they're letting on, I'm going to show you a video now of a park ranger being asked about a missing person and his reaction to being asked and told about that. Okay? So here we go.
You guys are shooting for personal use, right?
Yeah.
She's not paid photographer or anything like that.
What's that?
She's not like a paid photographer or anything like that.
No, not for YouTube. We're just looking for a... You know, missing it?
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to cover a story on his disappearance.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really like.
Found his trash. I don't know if you guys have a trash can or...
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not technically inclined to comment on that, but yeah. What was your name?
Bob.
What is it?
Bob, B-O-B.
Oh, Bob.
Yeah,
Okay.
his name...
Did you know him or?
No. We're just covering the story for him. Just for YouTube.
Right. Okay. And what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Yeah, we don't tell people. We just can't.
Okay. Alright then. Alright.
So you guys have to be hard for me to go missing there. His car was found right there in the parking lot.
Something like that, yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you guys.
Okay, so if that's not suspicious, I don't know what is, because basically everything that guy said, in every way that he said it, was just weird. I'm not gonna tell you what that could have possibly meant, because I don't know, but all it shows to me is that they probably know a little bit more than we do. So this video was sort of just an introduction to my series of my hypotheses on this subject. So in my next videos, I'm going to be introducing you to each different hypothesis I have. And I think we're going to start with my favorite one, Sasquatch. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.